Does everyone know what ekphrastic poetry is? Ekphrastic poetry simply means to look at a piece of art or a painting and write a poem about it. And I'll pass this around. Portrait of Mademoiselle Legrand. What thoughts wing flat through your 8-year-old mind? What is it that crowds your weighted smile? What is the diversion that wanders the space between painter and portrait? Is it the required stillness that is antagonistic to legs that want to run? Is it the blue scarf, perhaps knotted too tightly, a decorative embellishment of your prison? Do those wayfarer eyes long to explore your little girl world? Does the crooked locket represent the restless child who will remain forever young? I joined a memoir group, Joanne and Marie over there. It's been very rewarding, but I'm kind of trepidatious about my memoirs. But on the good side, at the Philadelphia Writers Conference, I did get an honorable mention for one of my memoirs. And even though it's only an honorable mention, it thrilled me because at least I feel like I'm going in the right direction. I'm not a memoir writer, no matter what my memoir buddies tell me. I don't feel like a memoir writer, not yet. But anyway, this is called Dream. In June 1980, I was working at the Philadelphia State Hospital, better known as Byberry. I made my way down the stairs and my mom poured me a cup of morning coffee. My face contorted in a yawn, and I was thinking about a strange dream I had during the night. In my dream, my cousin Kathy and I were in a phone booth. "We have to have a couple of quarters between us," Kathy exclaimed in a panicky voice. She frantically ransacked her purse while I searched my pants pocket. That was all there was to the dream. On another morning, I was getting ready for work, and nothing was out of the ordinary, except that I was working overtime that day. When I arrived home, there was a note on the table. "Took your mother to the hospital. Sit tight, Dad." When he and my sister returned home, I learned that Mom was severely ill, which shocked me as it was always my father who suffered from ill health. I never considered my mom being seriously ill. My brother was still on active duty in the military, and we notified the Red Cross as he had instructed us to do whenever my father took ill. It was the quickest and easiest way to get Tom home from England during an emergency, but not this time. In fact, Tom later said everything that could go wrong did. While Tom battled to make it home, my mother was dying. Technically, she was already dead, but was being kept alive by a machine. The doctors were surprised at how she hung on, as if waiting for my brother to come home. Two of my cousins, Kathy and Josie, both volunteered to stay at the house to help out. One night, Kathy and I went to the hospital. We were well aware that time was running out for Mom. Kathy suggested we call to see if Tom had arrived. Was he in the States yet? Inside the hospital, we squeezed into a phone booth. "We have to have a couple of quarters between us." I knew everything Kathy was going to do and say. It was my dream. My dream was actually happening. Every hair on my neck stood up. My apparently senseless dream had embedded itself in me and taking on meaning and an eeriness that I can only describe as a mystical experience. My mother hung on for several more days. Kathy and Josie returned to their homes, and my brother finally made it home a couple of hours after Mom died. As it turned out, there were other strange events surrounding her death. including odd happenings to my father, my brother, and again to me. Both my father and I heard her calling from upstairs on more than one occasion. Even our dog Stumpy went to the bottom of the steps and looked up as if she heard Mom too. My brother had to return to duty, but got leave and came back to visit. My mother had never seen Sharon, my youngest niece, so Tom was determined to make sure my father did. While Tom was home, a really strange thing occurred. One morning, a picture of my mother as a little girl appeared on a downstairs table. My father assumed that my brother had opened up the cedar chest and pulled it out, but he hadn't. None of us had. My father insisted that all the family pictures were stored in the chest. Later, my brother went upstairs to investigate and found the chest was locked and a big pile of heavy 78 RPM records lay in undisturbed dust on top. On the plane back to England, his oldest daughter, Donna, who was then 8 or 9 years old, noticed the flight attendant and said, "Look, Daddy, this woman looks just like Grandma." Tom said she did, and they locked eyes for a moment. His wife, Jeanette, convinced him to go say hello. When the plane made a stop, Tom decided to introduce himself. The flight was a military hop, and she was seeing the soldiers off. By the time he made his way down the aisle, she was gone. Of course, no one really thought she actually was my mother, but it was another weird happening. As to how or why these things happen, I have no explanation. My father even called the priest to discuss some of them. The priest then visited us to bless the house, and all the uncanny things immediately stopped. Though my own Catholic faith was long gone, and my belief in God was in question, I do feel that life after death exists, and that the line between them might be thinner than we think. I was actually sorry when the strange event stopped. I have been taking my dreams much more seriously ever since.
Good memoir.
Thank you. And if you think this guy should just stick to poetry, I'm blaming this person right here for my memoir writing. Blame Connie. It's Connie's fault I'm writing memoirs. Now my poetry muse is feuding with my memoir muse, and I have to buy a black and white striped shirt for whenever I pick up a pen. I am putting the blame squarely on Connie for rousing inspiration that was perfectly content to be the last item at the bottom of the trunk. But darn, she had to come along with her stories, raise a ruckus like an unruly kindergarten student, and as a former teacher, she should know better.